So with The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Clint Eastwood did well with a movie set in the American Civil War, 1861-65. Now, this one was all about the American Civil War. The main protagonist was involved heavily, but it did much better critically than The Good, the Bad, the Ugly did initially with the reviewers. Now, The Outlaw Josey Wales is considered by many people as Clint's best Western in the 1970s. Now, this American film was set again during the American Civil War and directed by and starring Clint Eastwood as Josey Wales, with Chief Dan George, Sandra Locke, Bill McKinney, and John Vernon. The film tells the story of Josey Wales, a Missouri farmer whose family was murdered by Union militants during the Civil War. Driven to revenge, Wales joins a Confederate guerrilla band and makes a name for himself as a feared gunfighter. After the war, all the fighters in Wales' group expect him to surrender to Union officers, but he ends up being massacred. Wales becomes an outlaw, pursued by bounty hunters and Union soldiers as he tries to make a new life for himself. The film was adapted by Sonia Chemis and Philip Kaufman from author Asa Earl Forrest Carter's 1972 novel, The Rebel Outlaw Josey Wales, republished as shown in the movie's opening credits as Gone to Texas. The film was a commercial success, earning a big $31.8 million against a $3.7 million budget. In 1996, the film was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Josey Wales was portrayed by Michael Parks in the film's 1986 sequel, The Return of Josey Wales. His wife, Laura Lee, was played by Mary Ann Everett in the sequel. Now, again, cinematography by Bruce Surtees, edited by Ferris Webster, music by Jerry Fielding. Of course, production company is Eastwood's Balboa Company, distributed by WB, Warner Brothers. 136 minutes, released June 30th, 76. Again, small budget, 3.7, 31.8 return. So a lot of people at the turnstiles. And a lot of people figured High Plains Drifter was going to be his highlight of the decade, but for many, this is it. Now, in this one, Wales, a Missouri farmer, is driven to revenge by the murder of his wife and young son by a band of Redlegs, a unit of pro-Union Jayhawker militants from Senator James Haight Lane's Kansas Brigade, led by the brutal Captain Terrell. After grieving and burying his wife and son, Wales practices shooting a gun before joining a group of pro-Confederate Missouri bushwhackers led by William T. Anderson, taking part in attacks on Union sympathizers and Army units. At the conclusion of the war, Josey's friend and superior, Captain Fletcher, persuades the guerrillas to surrender, having been promised by Senator Lane that will be granted amnesty if they hand over their weapons. Wales refuses to surrender, and as a result, he and a young guerrilla named Jamie are the only survivors when Terrell's Redlegs massacre the surrendering men. Wales intervenes and wipes out many of the Redlegs with a Gatling gun before fleeing with Jamie, who dies from a bullet wound sustained in the massacre after helping Josey kill 2 pursuing bounty hunters. Lane forces a reluctant Fletcher to assist Terrell in finding his friend and puts a $5,000 bounty on his head, attracting the attention of Union soldiers and bounty hunters who seek to hunt him down. Along the way, and despite his aversion to traveling with company, Wales accumulates a diverse group of companions. They include an old Cherokee man named Lone Watee, Little Moonlight, a young Navajo woman, Sarah Turner, an elderly woman from Kansas, and her granddaughter Laura Lee, who Wales and Little Moonlight rescue from a group of marauding Comancheros. Josey and Laura later sleep together, as do Lone Wait and Little Moonlight. At the town of Santa Rio, 2 men, Travis and Chado, who had worked for Sarah Turner's deceased son Tom, join the group. So the legend of Josey Wales builds in this one. Wales and his companions find the abandoned ranch once owned by Tom and settle in. Travis and Chado are soon after captured by the feared Comanche tribal leader, Ten Bears. Wales rides to Ten Bears' camp, parleys with him, and makes peace, with Ten Bears taking a blood oath to live in peace with him and his. Wales rescues Travis and Chado and brings them back to the ranch. Now, meanwhile, a bounty hunter whose partner was gunned down by Wales at Santa Rio guides Captain Terrell and his men to town. The following morning, the Redlegs launch a surprise attack on the ranch. Wales' companions open fire from the fortified ranch house, gunning down all of Terrell's men. A wounded Wales, despite being out of ammunition, pursues the fleeing Terrell back to Santa Rio. When he corners him, Wales dry fires his 4 pistols through all the empty chambers before holstering them. As Tyrrell draws his cavalry saber, Wales grabs his hand and, after a slow struggle, forces the blade to Tyrrell's chest, finally avenging his family. Returning to the Santa Rio saloon, Wales enters to find the locals are telling Fletcher, along with the 2 Texas Rangers, how an outlaw named Josey Wales had recently been killed in Monterey by 5 pistoleros. The Rangers accept the story, along with a signed affidavit, and move on, while Fletcher says nothing about Wales and pretends not to recognize him. After the Rangers ride off, Fletcher says he will go to Mexico to look for Wales himself and try to tell him that the war is over. Wales says, "I reckon so. I guess we all died a little in a damn war," before riding off. Very interesting cast as well, because you get John Vernon, the height of his powers, a great Canadian actor. Sam Bottoms, Sheb Woolley's in there as well. And John Mitchum, Robert's brother, always a character actor, Doug McGrath as well. A very interesting cast and a very, very well put together cast. Now, again, the movie was inspired by a 1972 novel by supposedly Cherokee writer Forrest Carter, alias a former KKK leader and segregationist speechwriter of George Wallace, Asa Earl Carter, an identity that would be exposed in part due to the success of the film. And it was originally titled A Rebel Outlaw Josey Wales, and later retitled Gone to Texas. The script was worked on by Sonia Shernis and producer Robert Daly at Malposa, and Eastwood himself paid some of the money to attain the screen rights. Michael Cimino and Philip Coffin later oversaw the writing of the script, aiding Chamis. Coffin wanted the film to stay as close to the novel as possible in style and retain many of the mannerisms in Wales' character, which Eastwood would display on screen, such as the distinctive lingo with the words like reckon, hoss instead of horse, and ye instead of you, and spitting tobacco juice on animals and victims. The characters of Wales, a Cherokee chief, Navajo woman, the old settler woman, and her daughter all appeared in the novel. On the other hand, Coffin was less happy with the novel's political stance. He felt that it had been written by a crude fascist and that the man's hatred of government was insane. He also felt that element of the script needed to be severely toned down, but he later said Clint didn't and it was his film. Coffin was later fired by Eastwood, who took over the film's direction himself. Now, cinematographer Bruce Surtees, James Fargo, and Fritz Means scouted for locations and eventually found sites in Utah, Arizona, Wyoming, and Orville, California, even before he saw the final script. The movie was shot in deluxe and Panavision. Coffin cast Chief Dan George, who had been nominated for Academy Award for supporting actor in Little Big Man, as the old Cherokee Lone Wati. Sandra Locke, also a previous Academy Award nominee, was cast by Eastwood against Coffin's wishes. She played Laura Lee, the granddaughter of the old settler woman. At 32, she was a decade older than the character. This marked the beginning of a professional and domestic relationship between Eastwood and Locke that would span 6 films and last in the 1980s and caused heavy controversy during their breakup. Ferris Webster was hired as the film's editor and Jerry Fielding as composer. Now, there was a lot of momentum about this movie, and word of mouth was helping it quite strong. Now, in June 1975, it was announced that Eastwood would star in the film with a scheduled bicentennial celebration release. Principal photography began on October 6th in Lake Powell in nearby Perea, Utah. A rift between Eastwood and Coffin developed during the filming. Coffin insisted on filming with a meticulous attention to detail, which caused disagreements with Eastwood, not to mention the attraction the two shared towards Locke and apparent jealousy on Coffin's part in regard to her emerging relationship. One evening, Coffin insisted on finding a beer can as a prop to be used in a scene, but while he was absent, Eastwood ordered Surtees to quickly shoot the scene as light was fading and then drove away, leaving before Coffin had returned. Soon after, filming moved to Kanab, Utah. On October 24th, 1975, Coffin was fired at Eastwood's command by producer Bob Daly. The sacking caused an outrage amongst the Directors Guild of America and other important Hollywood executives, since the director had already worked hard in the film, including completing all of the pre-production. And of course, word got around quickly that Eastwood had fired him. Now, pressure mounted quickly on Warner Brothers and Eastwood to back down, and the refusal to do so resulted in a fine reported to be around $60,000 for the violation. This resulted in the Directors Guild passing a new rule known as the Eastwood Rule, which prohibits an actor or producer from firing director and then personally taking on the director's role. From then on, the film was directed by Eastwood himself, with Daly as the second in command. With Coffin's planning already in place, the team was able to finish making the film efficiently. Now, the reviews of the movie was widely acclaimed, and Roger Ebert said Eastwood is such a taciturn and action-oriented performer that it's easy to overlook the fact that he directs many of these movies, and many of the best, most intelligent ones. Here, with the moody, gloomily beautiful photography of Bruce Surtees, he creates a magnificent Western feeling. Now, the film was pre-screened at the Sun Valley Center for the Arts and Humanities in Idaho in a 6-day conference entitled Western Movies, Myths, and Images. Academics such as Bruce Jackson, critics such as Jay Cox and Arthur Knight, and directors such as King Vidor, Henry King, William Wyler, and Howard Hawks were invited by the screening. Now, Time magazine named the film one of the year's 10 best. On the Merv Griffin show, Orson Welles praised the film, calling Eastwood one of America's finest directors. Now, Rotten Tomatoes has it at 91% approval based on 44 reviews. Metacritic has a rating of 69 based on 9 reviews. Now, The Outlaw Josey Wales was nominated for Academy Award for Original Musical Score, and of course, 96 was added to the registry. Eastwood said on the 99 DVD release that the movie is certainly one of my high points of my career in the Western genre of filmmaking. Now, in 2011, Eastwood called The Outlaw Josey Wales technically a 19-war film. As for Josey Wales, I saw the parallels to the modern day at that time. Everybody gets tired of it, but it never ends. War is a horrible thing, but is also a unifier of countries. Man becomes his most creative during war. Look at the amount of weaponry that was made in the 4 short years of World War II. The amount of ships and guns and tanks and inventions and planes and P-38s and P-51s, and just the urgency and the camaraderie and the unifying. But that's kind of a sad statement on mankind, if that's what it takes. Now, this movie has been taught in film schools. It's been promoted like in essays of what they call the 1970 Western rebel motif. We had a lot of Western 1970s that went against the traditional way, like the John Wayne style or the John Ford style. I've seen this movie from start to finish, and it's one of the most American movies that Clint Eastwood ever did. There's no way a Canadian director like Norman Jewison or Arthur Hiller or somebody else could have done that movie. Only Clint Eastwood could have made this movie. So he's ego-driven. He got the woman in Sandra Locke in real life and on the screen. He took over the direction, and he bought the script. It's a Clint Eastwood production, and Chief Dan George, which was a very, very appreciated supporting actor at the time, it brought a new level of success because usually Aboriginal people that are portrayed in Westerns were sort of like hangers-on, or like, where the white people are saving them. This is a fleshed-out character that Chief Dan George plays, and is dangerous in a certain way to Eastwood and the basic concept of what's going on. But when your script writer has that connection, boys, it's kind of freaky. And a lot of jurisdictions didn't really want to screen this movie because of the scriptwriter being the connection he had. But I saw this movie initially when it came out, 3.5 stars out of 4. The thing is, it drags a little bit, but like many Clint Eastwood movies, if you're looking at Clint Eastwood for 90 minutes, it goes fast. But if you're looking at the same person like Clint Eastwood for 2 hours, it can be very long. But you knew that Sandra Locke and Eastwood were going to hook up together because they had chemistry from the start. But their breakup is a movie in itself, and I don't think any documentary could really cover what Eastwood did. He took the importance of the women in his life towards the productions in his life. If he was satisfied romantically, he would do a better product. And movies only started to slip when he started to break up with Sandra Locke. What a coincidence. So that's our latest Clint Eastwood podcast. If you like what you're doing here and the big guy, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And don't forget, requests are highly, highly appreciated and highly, highly considered. Have a good one. Bye.